Okay, hi everybody. So Veepson and I are from the Assistive Technology Clinic. ATC is an interdisciplinary clinic, and one of our roles is to support clients who are using different assistive technologies. Today, Veepson and I are going to talk about some of the technologies that we use specifically with our ALS populations, especially through our augmentative and alternative communication program and our environmental aids for daily living program. Through these two programs, what we do is we assess clients and make recommendations about different technology that's available to meet their needs. We provide clients with opportunities to try equipment at our clinic or sometimes in the comfort of their own homes. We set up and customize equipment to meet clients' unique needs. We train clients, caregivers, and family members who will be interacting with this equipment. And we provide ongoing technical support for clients using this technology. Especially with the ALS populations, we also continue to follow them through our ALS clinic so that we can offer reassessment and new recommendations as their needs change. So our augmentative and alternative communication program was designed to meet the needs of our clients who are having difficulty communicating face-to-face due to changes in their speech, or clients who are having difficulty communicating in writing due to changes in their hand function. And we do this by providing them with tools and technology that can enhance or provide an alternative to their natural speech or their manual handwriting. And some of the technology that we use to do this are writing aids, alternative access equipment, low-tech communication aids, speech-generating devices, and integrated devices.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm going to start off by talking about writing aids. So if I can, perfect. Writing aids are an alternative for people who experience difficulty handwriting, and whether it be for writing daily journals, putting together shopping lists, or for completing homework, a computer can serve as a digital replacement for pen and paper. And for people with more complex physical needs, accessibility hardware and software may be required in order to get the individual to be able to access the computer, which Cecilia and I will be talking about throughout the presentation. Writing aids also allow for our patients to access the world around them, whether it be by using a web browser, sending emails, or just sending posting on Facebook, for example. It's important to note that writing aids can also be placed in positions where our patients typically use their devices, such as in hospital beds or in wheelchairs, such as how it's mounted in this picture above. So I'd like to start off with some software alternatives. So as I mentioned, people with our patients with physical or mobility impairments can benefit by using alternative means of accessing a keyboard. There are many options which exist for those who have difficulty using a standard keyboard. Sticky Keys is actually free built-in software that's built into Windows ease of access settings. It makes it easier for people to type with one hand. And a good example of this is for when we want to capitalize a letter. We usually hold the Shift key and the desired letter together in a combination. Sticky Keys locks the Shift key so that you can press the Shift key and then the letter you want to type. So it makes it easier to type with one hand. Filter keys is a feature which tells the keyboards to ignore brief or repeated keystrokes, and it makes it easier for people with hand tremors. Lastly, on-screen keyboards are another alternative, and what they do is they have features such as word prediction and word completion, which can increase the rates of typing. There's free built-in options for this built into Mac and Windows, but there are more customizable versions that are developed by third-party developers. As with the keyboard, there are also alternatives to mice. Some of the options that we typically use with our ALS population include joysticks, and Karen actually mentioned earlier that you can actually use your joystick of a powered wheelchair, to use as a cursor when you're paired via Bluetooth. A trackball, which is the item at the top right corner, can also be used, and as you rotate the ball within its socket, the cursor moves as well. A trackball is a specialized camera which actually tracks a reflective dot that's placed on the patient's head. head mouse. And what it does is it looks for a reflective dot placed on the user's head, and as the user moves his head, the cursor moves proportionally. Finally, eye gaze technology is used, which tracks the user's pupils, and as the user moves around his or her eyes, they can use an on-screen keyboard, control a cursor, and make selections. It's important to note that there's a lot of options that exist for accessing a computer, but which is why it's important that we involve an OT for an assessment in order to determine what suits our patient's needs. Finally, switches, access switches, which Karen spoke about earlier. These can be used to replace a mouse click, and they come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and activation forces. And these switches can actually be positioned using mounting so that you can use them at various motor points, so that you can use them with the hand, foot, or even chin, as seen in the picture above. We also have an ability to control an entire computer using a single switch by a method called switch scanning, and basically icons get highlighted and move in a sequential rate, and as they move along, you can hit the switch to select an icon. And we'll actually have a demonstration of that at our booth later on at lunch. Feel free to join us. Some clients may have difficulty accessing a traditional mouse or keyboard and may benefit from voice recognition software. Now, voice rec can allow users to dictate text instead of typing. It can also allow them to use or operate an entire computer using voice commands. Voice rec is used by some ALS patients. However, it's not suited for all, as voice rec, in order for it to be successful, you have to have clear speech as well as adequate volume. An assessment by a speech language pathologist is very important when recommending voice recognition.
So now I'm going to talk about some tools and technologies that people might use to support their face-to-face communication. When clients start to experience changes to their speech, for some clients, a very natural alternative can be writing. So we find some clients like to write on notebooks or whiteboards, or they might use an e-writer like a boogie board, which is shown on the slides. Clients who have difficulty with handwriting might instead point to letters or messages on an alphabet board or a message board. Clients who have difficulty with even pointing, they can still benefit from these simple communication tools, perhaps through an eye gaze board or through a method called partner-assisted scanning. And these low-tech tools can be used to enhance or clarify verbal speech. They can be used as an alternative to verbal speech, or they can be used in combination with a more complex electronic communication aid. Voice amplifiers are sometimes a good tool for clients who have reduced volume but good articulation. A voice amplifier is essentially a microphone and a speaker that work together to turn up the volume of a person's speech. In order for this to be an effective communication tool, it's very important that the client's articulation is very precise and very clear. Because ALS is a progressive condition and because we know it can affect the speech muscles, it's not often a good long-term solution for ALS clients. And for this reason, it's very important to consult with a speech language pathologist who has experience specifically with ALS populations before considering a voice amplifier. There is some government funding that's available for the purchase of communication aids, including voice amplifiers. However, due to the progressive nature of ALS, we typically recommend that clients don't use this government funding for a voice amplifier, since it's a short-term solution and also because it might affect their ability to access funding later on should they need a more complex and more expensive communication device in the future. For some clients, communication software might be a more appropriate communication tool. For clients who have their own smartphones or tablets, there are lots of apps that are available for download through the Apple Store or through the Google Play Store. These can be a great option for some clients because it allows them to enhance or replace their speech through text-to-speech, which is where a client would type a message on a keyboard and then their device could speak it out loud using a synthetic voice. Other programs like the one shown below allow you to pre-program frequently used messages, and then you can communicate a full sentence just by pressing one button. These are good options because they're very portable devices, and also there are a lot of free or low-cost apps that you can download. There are tons of options out there, and some are better than others. There's no one-size-fits-all app that I feel comfortable recommending, so it's best to consult with a speech-language pathologist before trying an app. And it's important to keep in mind that using these apps do require a certain level of hand function and dexterity in order to operate a phone, so they're not a good solution for everybody. For some clients, a dedicated speech-generating device might be a more appropriate option. These devices usually have text-to-speech or saved messages as well. Sometimes they have a combination of both features. And these devices are kind of a step up from a cheaper communication app because the software is designed to meet various communication needs. They can be customized to have larger layouts, different font sizes, different colors. You can add symbols to support people who have different levels of language skills or different visual abilities. These devices can be very portable, or they can come in larger sizes that can be mounted to wheelchairs or beds or on a floor mount. And these devices are also designed to be accessed by people with different physical needs, and they can be accessed through many of the ways that Wiepsen already talked about, including touch, a mouse alternative, head mouse, scanning, or eye gaze. And then integrated devices are sort of a combination of a speech-generating device and a writing aid device. And these devices allow people to meet all of their communication needs, such as face-to-face communication, word processing, email, web browsing. They can do all of that from one device, so it's very convenient. So how would somebody get a device like this? The Assistive Devices Program provides partial funding for the purchase or lease of communication aids, including writing aids, speech-generating devices, low-tech communication aids, integrated devices, as well as all the accessibility software or hardware that a client would need, as well as mounting. So for clients with progressive conditions like ALS, we typically recommend that clients lease their equipment. They can do this from a government-regulated pool. And we recommend leasing because it allows clients the flexibility to change or modify their equipment as their needs change. In order to be eligible for this leasing program, the equipment must be prescribed by an expanded level AAC clinic. And that's because the prescription typically requires an interprofessional team assessment by clinicians who are very knowledgeable about the specific equipment that they're dealing with. So clients do need to pay a portion of the lease fees out of pocket, but for clients who are unable to do this, they can apply for secondary funding through the ALS Society. So now I'm going to talk a little bit more about voice banking, which Anna did introduce you to. Voice banking is sort of a way of preserving one's natural speech through recordings. So clients who are doing voice banking would record a sample of their speech, and they would run it through a computer program, which would produce a personalized synthetic voice. This synthetic voice could then be loaded onto a speech-generating device, and it could be used instead of a more generic voice for communication through text-to-speech and through saved messages. There are two programs that we know about here. Some of our clients have done Model Talker, which requires them to do several hours of recording in order to produce their voice. With Model Talker, it can be a little bit time-consuming and strenuous for the voice. The quality of the voice will also depend on the quality of the speaker's voice when they do the recording. So for Model Talker voice banking, it's important that it started early on in the disease progression before there are significant changes to the speech. Vocal ID is a similar program, but you have the option with Vocal ID to just record 3 seconds of speech, and then the program matches you with a similar sounding donor voice. So that could be an option for somebody who's unable or not interested in investing in the full voice banking program like Model Talker. Another alternative to voice banking would be message banking. And in message banking, clients record specific phrases or messages that can be loaded in full to a speech generating device. And these messages can be accessed through the saved messages pages. They cannot function with text-to-speech features. So some things that clients might record are commonly used phrases, social phrases, unique catchphrases, jokes, stories, as well as expressive sounds like laughter. Message banking is less technically demanding than voice banking. Clients can do recordings on their own phones or their own computers. They don't need to buy a specialized program. And it can be more forgiving than voice banking. So clients who are already having some speech changes, they can still do message banking. And at this time, there is no funding that we know of that's available for voice banking. Those voice banking programs, Model Talker and Vocal ID, they're both paid programs. And there's no cost to doing message banking. Anybody can do it on their own. And it's for either option, it's important to consult with a speech language pathologist because they'll be able to give you recommendations about which options are best suited for your clients, as well as provide tips and strategies to get the best recordings possible.
So now we're going to talk a little bit about environmental aids to daily living, or EADL. And what EADL are electronic devices which help people with, or patients with disabilities complete everyday tasks. Now, they allow patients to increase their independence by having to rely less on family members or caregivers, therefore increasing their quality of life. These tasks can include anything from turning on the lights, opening doors, changing the channel on a TV. However, the simplest form of an EADL is a call bell. And I'm sure many of you have heard of this device before and are familiar with it, but basically what it is, it's an alert or a chime that can be played wirelessly throughout a home or a room in order to get the attention of a caregiver. And our patients typically use them in order to get the attention to maybe let the caregivers know that they want to be repositioned in their wheelchair or hospital bed, or that they want to use the washroom. It's important to note that these devices are switch adapted. So as I mentioned earlier, I talked a little bit about the access touch switches which are available. So there are a number of options that can be prescribed. But again, it's important that we integrate an OT as well into this, because there are just so many options available, and the best access methods need to be incorporated. Now we're going to get a little bit more complicated with the EADLs. Like I said, there's ways that we can control lighting, TVs, heating, and there currently exists equipment that can control a patient's entire home. However, these systems are very expensive, they're dated, they're a bit bulky, and they're complex to work with, both from a technical perspective and from a user-based perspective. However, with the advancement of technology, specifically in the smart home sector, commercial products exist which lets one control an entire environment just from an iPad or from a tablet. And now I know some of you might be wondering how our patients can use this, especially those with mobility impairments. But like we've been mentioning throughout this presentation, there are a number of options which exist. So now if we take a standard off-the-shelf tablet and combine that with the access methods that we've been presenting on today, we can create an inclusive product which lets a patient control their entire home, whether it be for TV, heating, lights, or door, through a simple tablet. And this actually reduces costs significantly, as well as the fact that there's just a numerous amount of access methods, whether it be through a stylus, through switch access, through alternative mice. So this is sort of the basis that the EADL program at our clinic operates on. So we do get referrals for this, and clients come in and meet our entire team of occupational therapists, speech language pathologists, and the assistive techs. And we determine our patient's goals with the client in mind. We develop solutions, and then we provide training as well as setting up the devices in the client's home. It's important to note that there is no funding for EADL devices through ADP. So some funding options which might subsidize the cost are through third-party agencies as well as through private insurance. Lastly, I'd like to close with a device that ATC has been working on with an organization based out of New Jersey called Technology Against ALS. And it's a communication device that's currently in the prototype phase. However, the goal is to create a fully integrated device that can meet the EADL and AAC needs of a client at all stages of progression. So from touch access to eye gaze. And I just want to speak specifically on the eye gaze component because it's a little bit different than what we're all used to seeing. So typically, you'd use your eyes to hover over a button or an icon that you'd like to select. However, with this, the selection area is above the information that's presented to you. And what this allows you to do is actually consume more information. It's a little bit more intuitive. And it's a little bit of a difficult concept to grasp. So I think we have a video in the next slide, which if I can figure out how to play.
Being able to speak, we cherish it so much. From a child's first words, or the first time you said, "I love you," to unforgettable words of inspiration. And yet, we often take speech for granted. Now imagine, you cannot speak because of the tracheal tube. You have lost your ability to communicate. All you have is eye movement. What do? This is what happens to an ALS patient. The Ice Bucket Challenge that gained momentum in 2014 created awareness about ALS, otherwise known as Lou Gehrig's disease. When afflicted with ALS, despite almost complete physical paralysis, a patient's cognitive abilities remain intact, yet he or she cannot engage in normal conversation or easily communicate something important such as pain or discomfort. What if you could choose to speak words floating in your field of vision simply by looking? This is not science fiction.
Introducing the TALS Communicator. By using slight eye and head movements, the user can select letters on a heads-up display, while the predictive software completes their words and sentences, increasing their rate of speech. The device then converts the words into text and audible speech that allows the user to communicate with other people. Best of all, the standalone device is compact, portable, and lightweight. Existing models of communication devices are costly, bulky, and cumbersome. Compared to the old method of using letterboards, a TALS communicator user can articulate the same sentence in a fraction of the time. As you can see, the TALS communicator on the right enables the user to speak much faster than the caregiver-assisted letterboard on the left. Using voice banking technology, the device has the capability to recreate the patient's own voice. Using the device, the user can connect socially via SMS, WhatsApp, email, and control their environment. The TALS communicator enables people to re-engage with the world, to communicate with others in a simple and intuitive way.
Right, so we do have a demo of, or a prototype of this device at our booth. I think we're eating into lunch now, so feel free to come by our booth and check out some of the technologies and innovations that we have on display. Enjoy lunch, I think.